Welcome to Convenience Store News' Small Operator Academy, an education program designed to help the industry's independents and small chains overcome their biggest challenges and stay competitive. We're pleased to have here with us today John Matthews to talk about launching a food service program. John is the founder and president of Gray Cat Enterprises, a management consulting company based in Raleigh, North Carolina. Gray Cat specializes in strategic project management and consulting for multi-unit operations, as well as interim executive management and strategic planning. John has more than 30 years of senior level executive experience in the retail industry with dynamic multi-unit companies such as White Hen Pantry, Little Caesars Pizza, and the Jimmy John's sandwich chain. John, thanks so much for being here today. I'm going to hand it over to you now.
All right. Thank you, Linda. It's always a pleasure to be here, and I'll share my screen there. So today we're going to talk about developing a food service program. This is a big deal in the convenience store industry. The industry has changed and continues to change over the last couple of decades and moving more and more into food service. So this is a critical presentation to kind of walk you through. I'm kind of uniquely, I guess, qualified to give this presentation because I spent 10 plus years in the quick service restaurant industry with Little Caesars and with Jimmy John's. And then I spent, 7+ years in the convenience store industry. And now I consult to both over the last 2 decades. So I kind of approach food service perhaps a little bit differently than a convenience store operator. And I do it with kind of the scope and the ideas of what a quick service restaurant would do. So let's get into why food service. Food service, the margins continue to get tight on convenience store products. Your snacks and your beverages and cigarettes always seems to be taking a beating. And in cases of gasoline, it's up and down. And the customer is becoming more in tune with one-stop shopping. I know we've been saying that over the last couple of decades, but I'll tell you, with the advent of apps and all these other places that making it easy for them to say yes to facilities, we just have to be competitive in the convenience store industry and provide them with products that they're searching for. The beauty is that you're not starting from zero. You're averaging 12, 13, 1,400 customers per store per day. So how do you tap into that existing customer traffic and make their visit a little bit more profitable for you? Now, we've had some headwinds in the last 5 years with the whole COVID thing. How do you make sure that you don't dive headfirst into food service and then another variant raises its ugly head and now we got to deal with all of that? So there is that in the back of our mind that probably 10, 15 years ago we never thought was possible. There is labor challenges. Can you find the help to manage the food service? So you got supply chain, your supply chain, not only making sure that there aren't disruptions, but you're probably the more you get into food service, you're going to have to expand your suppliers to bring products into the stores. And then lastly, you might go, well, heck, John, I don't know anything about food service. You know food service, but I don't know food service. So do you kind of double down and get into food service, or do you have to actually go out and find people that can either work for you or people like me that can actually help you set up your food service program? So it's all around the customer. The customer is basically saying, look, we like coming into your store. We like grabbing an occasional Snickers bar, but man, wouldn't it be great if we could come in and get a product that's as good as Chipotle or a product that's as good as Panera, and then we wouldn't have to make a second stop. The other things to be considering is that grazing, snacking throughout the day is growing in popularity. Less people are eating 3 meals. They're eating 5 smaller meals throughout the day. They like to grab a snack here or there. Customers are looking for healthier options. So you have to consider, what am I offering now that is a healthy option? We're not talking about taking a frozen burrito and throwing it in a microwave. That's not what we're talking about with food service here. We're talking about fresh, healthy options. And then you gotta talk the language of healthy. You got to talk about, things are crispy, things are crunchy, not things are low fat or low salt. No one's finding that appealing for that. So there's a whole perception of what is healthy. And if you look at the picture on the left with the fruits and vegetables, part of the reason why a convenience store should probably have some fruits and vegetables, it conveys the freshness of your products to your customer. So let's talk about some of the food service options. First and foremost, you have to take a good look at your particular location. And in the case of some of you that might have multiple locations, you might have an urban store and you might have a suburban store, or you got one that's more rural, or you're on a commuter run or a truck stop. So you have to think about what is going to fit my particular store. If you think about Casey's has a lot of rural stores, and they are the pizza choice in that town. So they've kind of tapped into that customer. If you're on a commuter line, no one's gonna want to come in and wait around for a made-to-order sandwich. They're gonna want grab and go, and they're gonna want to head in that direction. So make sure your product matches the needs and the wants of your customer. And you may find, if you're a multi-store operator, that what works in one store might not work in the other store. And so you may have to have two different offerings from a food service perspective. So if you think about your store, if your store is 3,000 square feet, you're going to say, you know what, I'm going to allocate 300 square feet to food service, so 1/10 of my store. Nobody is optimizing all 3,000 square feet, so I bet you can find some space to put food service in. So basically, it gives you three options. You can either become a franchisee, you can rent the space to a franchisee, or you can actually develop and build and operate your own proprietary food. So let's walk through those options for you. First option is, you got unutilized space. There's a franchisor out there that wants to get in your territory. They have a franchisee for you. They're going to go in and put in their equipment, their model, their brand inside your store. So it's kind of a store within a store. And you become a landlord. You essentially collect a $10,000 check a month just for allocating 300 square feet to your store, or whatever that number is in your area. So the nice thing is you don't have to really know much about food service, because there's a franchisee that's actually running the operation. You can still stay focused on your C-store operations, and then each and every month you're just collecting a check. The second option is, you know what? I want to be the franchisee. I want to go to Dunkin' Donuts and say, hey, I want to buy a franchise in my area. Some of the challenges here, though, is not every franchisor has an open territory right on top of your store. There may be a Taco Bell across the street, a McDonald's down the street, a Subway in your 2-mile radius, and all of those are off the table because they're not going to want to cannibalize an existing franchisee. So the beauty is, though, when you do become a branded franchisee, you have a number of advantages. Everybody knows about Taco Bell. Everyone knows about Subway. So if you're a franchisee of those brands, the product recognition is already built for you. You don't have to create your own product recognition. There's a confidence in the brand that if someone were to walk in and they see a Subway, they kind of go, oh, I know what to expect here. I believe in this brand, and I'm gonna purchase here. There's a consistency and a quality. They've spent a lot of time and money putting together all the procedures and processes for their brand. And then obviously they have brand support, not only from an operational perspective, they're going to train you. They're going to say, here are the tools that you need to do from a marketing perspective and everything like that. Being a franchisee, though, does have its disadvantages. It's one size fits all. I may go, wow, I'm going to be a Taco Bell franchisee and I want to introduce the Gray Cat Taco. Well, I may not have that flexibility to be able to do that. There are some higher costs. You're paying for the model. You're paying in a franchise fee. You're paying in a license sales fee, a percentage of your sales goes to the particular franchisor, and you're probably going to have to contribute to either a national ad fund or a local ad fund or both. So there's higher costs associated with that. You don't have the control. I can't create my own menu. I can't go to my own suppliers. I got to use the pre-authorized suppliers from a franchisor. And like I mentioned early on, there may be some geographic boundaries that are limiting you from growing. So, for instance, if you had 5 stores and you go, man, I really want to be a Dunkin' Donuts franchisee, you may find that only one of your 5 stores has an open geography for being a Dunkin' franchisee. And then what are you going to do in your other 4? So, there are some limitations there. So, developing your own proprietary food service is an exciting proposition for a C-store operator because the slate is clean and you can actually develop your own offering, your own branding name, your own marketing, your own operations, but that's a lot of work. And if you look at the picture here, this is the Center Street Kitchen. This was something that my team worked on to develop a proprietary food service for the global partner Alltown Market stores up in New England. This particular store was in Orono, Maine. And we had to think through everything from what it looked like, the product assortment, the menu, what the uniforms were going to be, how we were going to actually operate the proprietary food service. So again, a lot of advantages. You're in control. We could have called it whatever we wanted to call it. We could have put whatever products in. We were totally in control. It helped us differentiate ourselves from the competitor because we weren't Subway. We were the Center Street Kitchen, and people walked in and go, wow, this is something very unique. It can save you some money because you're not paying all those royalties and the franchise fees. And so you can negotiate your product costs based on what your menu mix is. And honestly, there's a little bit more mystique to it. I mean, you've got your own little brand, and if you can develop that brand and have it in a half dozen stores or more, then all of a sudden word of mouth kind of takes off. Disadvantages, I kind of laid them out already. There's a lot of work to this. You got to come up with the brand name, the menu, the product, the suppliers, the marketing, everything. There's a lot. But once you get that set up, you're pretty much good to go. There are some organizational challenges. Training, you got to develop the training. Supply chain, you got to figure all that out. You got to figure out the operational flow. You got to figure out the marketing plan. Like it or not, you're always going to be second fiddle. You're not going to be Subway. You're not going to be Taco Bell. You're not going to have that brand strength that these behemoths have developed over the years, which personally, I kind of like being second fiddle because you can kind of fly under the radar, but it is a real issue when you think about it. And then sometimes it can be a little bit, you may be saving in the royalties and the franchise fees and everything, but you might not have the buying power to go out and kind of muscle your distributors. And so you're paying a little bit higher dollars. So it can be a little bit more money. I mean, it's your nickel. Every nickel that's going out the door is coming out of your pocket here with the proprietary brand. Now, I showed you the Center Street Kitchen, which was a full-fledged kitchen that offered sandwiches and pizza and what have you. If you want to get into food service and you want to get into proprietary food, you may elect to go a little bit smaller than that and kind of walk before you run. You may say, you know what, I'm going to take one category. I'm going to take my hot beverage, my coffee, and maybe my bakery, and I'm going to come up with, in this case, the Four Corners Coffee and the Four Corners Bakery. And you could actually create your own little category. And then once you've kind of mastered all the elements that you need to have a proprietary category be successful, from a marketing, from an operations, from a supply chain, then you can maybe evolve to another category or go a little bit larger into a full store within a store for your location. So let's get into some of the details, and I'll go through these fairly quickly just so you know everything that is involved. And this isn't to scare you, but if you were to start your own proprietary food service, these are the things that you would have to consider along the way. So there are basically 9 that I've outlined here, from menu development to your suppliers to the financial consideration, floor plan, equipment, operational flow, technology, if you're going to introduce technology into your food service offering, and then merchandising and marketing. So from a menu development, again, if you're a single store operator, you want to look at the demographics and what the competition is doing around you and the size of your location and say, do I want to have MTO? Do I want to have made to order food service? Or do I just simply want to make sandwiches behind the wall and then have grab and go, or make pizza and have it all grab and go? You want to consider a lot of better for you items, though, when you're putting your food service together. No one wants to come into your store and take a frozen burrito out of a case and throw it in a microwave and go, wow, this is amazing food service. They want it to be healthier appearing, better for you options. You also probably want to have some sort of signature case. So if you've developed your own proprietary brand and it's grab and go, you want to make it look like it is the showpiece in your store. And I'll show you that a little bit later on some of the floor plans, but you want to be able to have that. Now, in the case of what we did with Alltown, we actually combined two food service offerings in one store because we had a large store. We had a proprietary brand, the Center Street Kitchen, and we were also collecting a check from a Dunkin' Donuts franchisee. So we had two different day parts covered off, and we had, the best of kind of both worlds in doing that. Menu development, not only do you have to figure out what is going to be on your menu, are you going to go with chicken? Are you going to go with sandwiches? Are you going to go with pizza? Whatever that is. But then you have to think about, how am I going to make all this stuff? So at Jimmy John's, we had 24 sandwiches, but we only had 6 meats, 2 breads, and 1 cheese. And so our ingredients were very small, and we optimize those ingredients across 24 items. So that minimizes our cost, it minimizes our waste. It's easier to train. So you want to be thinking about your menu, not only what is the end menu options, but how are you going to assemble all of these products? And what you don't want is, you don't want a cheese that's only used on one of your items, and then that cheese is just going to go bad because it's going to, exceed its shelf life. You have to think about the frequency of deliveries as well. When I was at Little Caesars, we got a delivery once a week on flour and oil and pepperoni and things like that. But we got delivery on vegetables 3 times a week. So we had a separate supplier for that because you wanted those items fresh, and they didn't have the longer shelf life like a pepperoni would have. And then you have to think about, production schedules. You got to establish par levels. Are you going to make X sandwiches on Monday versus Thursday versus the weekend? And how do you do that by day part and everything like that? And then what is the sequential prep time? You got to bake the bread before you can make a sandwich. So you got to prep the bread, you got to slack the bread, you got to bake the bread, you got to have it smell up the whole, store and make it smell amazing. And then you got to create the sandwiches, and you got to do the same thing with cookies and slicing meat and everything like that. So the whole food service, from an operational and production standpoint, when you have a proprietary food service brand, is you have to think through all of those possibilities. And then from a national supplier standpoint, you probably have, your Cokes coming in and your Pepsis coming in, but you got your C-store wholesale distributors like your McLean's, your Hackneys, your M.R. Williams, your Core-Marks, all of those. But if you're going to get into more food service, you may want to think about bringing in food service suppliers in addition to that. So your Sysco's and your US Foods and what have you. In the case of the Center Street Kitchen, we actually had Boar's Head sandwiches, and we got delivery directly from Boar's Head to come into our stores. So that was a choice that we made, that we wanted to have an elevated product, but the only way to get it is you had to get it through Boar's Head. And so it's one more supplier coming into the store. You also want to think about local suppliers. I mentioned early on that local is perceived to be healthy, and customers want healthy, and they view local items like local honeys and cheeses and meats and breads as healthier. And getting your produce, as I mentioned, what we did with Little Caesars, it was always a local produce supplier. So the more that you can have delivered locally from local suppliers, and you actually call those suppliers out to your customers saying, hey, we're sourcing all of our breads from, this guy that's a part of the community, that has a great perception, positive perception in the eyes of your customers. From a financial standpoint, you also have to think about if you're doing your own proprietary food service option and you're comparing it against, boy, if I had a franchisee in here just cutting me a $10,000 check, what's my payback on that versus I'm going to spend X dollars in capital to build out this 300 square feet. And you have to kind of go through a whole profit and loss analysis, and you have to figure out, okay, here are my fixed costs, here are my variable costs. Am I going to make money? What if? What's my break even? Do I have to do 300,000 in sales to break even to offset my capex costs? Blah, blah, blah. So there's a bunch of stuff that has to go into mapping this out, and developing that profit and loss statement. But you can also look at it like, man, if I exceed that, I've already kind of covered my nut at 300,000. If I get to 500,000, I'm just printing money at that point because I've covered all my expenses. You're probably going to have to, if you start bringing in like a Cisco or a US Foods, you're going to have to do a request for a proposal. You're going to have to kind of negotiate your terms like you would with a McLean or a Core-Mark or any one of those, the Hackneys of the world that you would sit down and negotiate a deal with them. You're going to have to do that with these other suppliers, and you're going to have to go through an RFP process and figure out, is it going to be profitable for me to use this particular company? Do they deliver enough? Do they cover off all of my stores? There's some complexity to that. But again, once you get these things set up, there's a lot of upfront work with a proprietary brand. But once you get things set up, and if you've got the sales volume, you can actually make a lot of money. So from a floor plan standpoint, we always approach putting together the floor plan, and we kind of talk about programming. So what are the elements of the store that are available to us? And then we design the store around those elements. So in this particular case, it was a 5,000 square foot store. We knew we had a franchisee, Dunkin' Donuts, that was going to go in there. We knew we had a beer license, so we had a beer cave. We knew we had a Center Street kitchen. We knew we wanted to put a signature offering. We knew we had diesel in the back. That's why we have an opportunity to get around to the back, and so on and so forth. So once you have all those elements, then you kind of lay it out. And most people will go, well, I'm going to build a 4,000 square foot store, and then I'm going to figure out what's going to go in it. We always took the opposite approach and said, give me all the elements, and then I'll tell you how big the store has to be in order to fit on the site plan. So you want to, in this particular case where you would actually walk in, you can see there's a signature offering front and center. So we're showcasing the products that are going to be in the Center Street kitchen. The made to order products are going to be out in that signature offering for the people that want the high quality, healthy options, but don't want to wait for the made to order that you could get at the Center Street kitchen. They can just simply grab and go to the cashier. Or in the case of it's a morning day part, they can walk in and go to the left and go to the Dunkin' Donuts and get all that. All the convenience store products would be over to the right on the gondolas, including the beer cave and the walk-in coolers. So what you're trying to do is make it easy for the customer to come in and shop the store, but you're highlighting the key elements, which is the signature offering, and the Center Street kitchen was front and center. Then once you have that floor plan, again, you go to smaller stores. And in this case, we went from 2,600 square feet up to 4,500 square feet. And again, the same kind of, what are the elements of the store? That's how big the store should be. So if we didn't have a beer license, you wouldn't have a beer cave. If you didn't have a Dunkin' Donuts franchisee, you wouldn't have a branded food. If you didn't have the space for made to order at Center Street Kitchen, you would just simply have grab and go like the 2,600 square foot store is representing. And then what we would do is, if you're talking about building a brand new store that includes food service and all of your convenience products, a critical thing is, I don't really want to go out and spend a ton of money and not have a feel for what the store would do. So we actually helped Global in this particular case with a three-dimensional rendering. And we had their entire senior team come in and we said, all right, this is the way the store is going to look. And before you spend $3 million building this store, we're going to show it to you so everybody's on the same page, and that if you give us the thumbs up, then we know that we're headed in the right direction. So I will walk you through this particular store. And you can see we walk in and there's the signature case in the front, and then we're walking over to the convenience area, which has gondola runs, the walk-in, or excuse me, the reach-in coolers. And then there's a beer cave that you can actually walk inside. We head down towards where the Center Street kitchen is, and you can see it's a working kitchen that's going to be made to order. There's customer ordering kiosks there. In this case, we didn't have a Dunkin' Donuts, so we had our own coffee program called Green Mountains. There's a fountain, there's a staging area for the coffee, and you can see that we're right back to the front of the store. So the nice thing about this three-dimensional rendering, and we could actually put products in there and everything like that, is that it gives you a feel for what the store is going to look like before you pick up a hammer and start building the store. And that's good because you could go, wow, I really don't like that floor, so let's change it. It's a lot easier to say it on a three-dimensional rendering than after the floor has been installed. Then after that, you got to think about, all right, I kind of know the flow of my store and everything like that. Now, where's all this equipment go? So, because there's a lot of equipment associated with a convenience store, you layer in a food service offering, and now you got a ton of equipment. So the food service equipment all has to get laid out. You got the front line, you got the back of the house, you got display cases, you got sanitation items. You know, there's a little bit more sanitation that is required when you're doing food prep. And so you hire a CAD CAM guy and he can lay it all out for you, and you can kind of see the flow of the equipment with the product offering, and it just tightens up the process. And then you can take some renderings and say, okay, so we got a lot of coffee urns back there, and potentially you're assuming you're going to have a whole bunch of customers all filling up their coffee. Now they need a landing spot to be able to put their condiments together and to get their lids and everything like that. So here's an opportunity just to go, is this how we want to have this set up? Is this enough for people to take a look like? So if you're getting a sense that I try to minimize the mistakes when we're building these stores and these food service offerings, and having these visuals where you can kind of envision yourself kind of walking around this island is a safe way of ensuring that the product and the layout is going to be successful. Now we got to talk about operations. Okay, so who does what? So are you going to have a convenience store guy run your food service? Or are you going to have two separate divisions? Are you going to have, someone that's just responsible for food service? So you got to be thinking about who's going to do what. In the case of Alltown, we not only delineated the food service from the C-store operations, we actually put them in different uniforms, so they would clearly know that they were different. So in the case of the food service operation, they were in chef's coats and hats, and then the C-store folks were in polo shirts. And so to the customer, they were walking in kind of going, this Center Street kitchen must be different than the convenience store. It must be like a branded food that I've never heard about. This is pretty cool. And here's a guy back here in a chef's coat making me a sandwich. It's kind of neat. So you got to be thinking about if it's big enough, you have standalone labor, and you probably have a profit and loss statement just for the food service, and then you have one for the convenience store, so you can make sure that what you're doing in the food service makes sense. From an operational procedure and process standpoint, you got to be thinking about build to charts, and that's when you're building up your inventory to be able to make the products that you're going to be selling. So you've got inventory management. You got to make sure that you're rotating your product. There's a little bit more complexity because the shelf lights are much shorter with food service than they are with a Snickers bar. Cleanliness and sanitation, this is critical. You got to get certified in sanitation. You got to make sure that things are being prepped properly. The last thing you want is to have a foodborne illness outbreak at your location. That will crater anything that you've ever done. You can just look at some of the big boys that have had that happen in the quick service restaurant industry, and it takes them a long time to recover from that. So you want to make sure that you're doing things in a cleanly and sanitary fashion. If you have multiple locations and maybe only one of them is going to have a made-to-order offering and the other ones are going to have grab and go, you may want to consider using that made-to-order kitchen as a commissary for the other locations. And so now you're really utilizing that labor even more at the made to order kitchen, and they're producing products for the other two locations that you might have that would be grab and go. That's a smart way of doing it. It kind of the old hub and spoke model with operations. From a technology standpoint, behind the scenes, if you're running a kitchen and people are placing orders, there's back kitchen bump bars, there's monitors, you got to produce a label, you got to be able to produce a receipt if you're paying for your food at the food service. On the front facing, you probably would want to consider, how do I have customers order through a kiosk as opposed to, leaning over the counter and telling me an order that I'm probably going to miss an ingredient or two. So actually having a kiosk where they can place an order, add extra mayo, take a tomato off, and all of that makes it very clear to the guy making the sandwich that this is how this customer wants it. And then you've got a POS system for your gas, you got one for the convenience products, you probably have a different one for your food service. How does this all kind of make its way back to the back office, and how does it integrate so that your finance people can actually know what's going on in the store? So you got to just think about that from a technology standpoint. Further on technology, do you have a digital menu? So this enables you to maybe make it change by day part. So if you didn't have a Dunkin' Donuts in your store, and you did have the ability to produce maybe muffins and bagels or something along the line in the morning, do you have a morning digital menu, and then at 11 o'clock, it switches over to afternoon and dinner? So where now you're talking pizza and you're talking sandwiches, and as opposed to having a static menu that doesn't give you that flexibility. And then do you think about, oh, maybe I should have an app? I mean, everyone can order a sandwich from, McDonald's, or I can get a burrito from Chipotle and I can order it on the app. How come this convenience store doesn't do this? So they've kind of risen the bar for the customer. And do you have an opportunity to develop an app for pre-ordering? If you have a large enough site, do you think about doing a drive-through? And if you have a drive-through, that perhaps you can get not only the food service, but maybe some core convenience products, you're going to have a menu out there for those folks. And is that, again, a digital menu that changes by day part? And then maybe you're so successful with your proprietary brand, you say, you know what, I'm going to develop a food truck. And for every one of those soccer events that I see down the street, I'm going to drive my food truck over there on Saturday morning and sell products out of my food truck. From a merchandising standpoint, probably the biggest thing that you have to understand is that people eat with their eyes. And when they see beauty pictures of food hanging in your window, they're going to be enticed when they're out at the pumps to say, there's something different about this place. They actually look like they have real pizza in the store. It isn't just something that looks like convenience store products. You have to think about, from a product marketing standpoint, how do you do combo pricing and cross merchandising? Do you have chips next to your food service that people can easily grab? Do you have a combo offer that has a drink, a chip, and a sandwich? You just want to make sure that you're kind of at no disservice to the convenience store shopper. You want to make sure that you're offering a kind of a market approach or a healthier option. So if someone does want to come in and get a healthy option product like a freshly made sandwich and still grab a Snickers bar, they can do that. And so you want to make it very inviting for them to go, this is real. This is legitimate. It's a store within a store, and I can take advantage of that with my one stop. From a marketing perspective, again, you're going to look at, do I have an urban location? Do I have a suburban location? Do I have a commuter location? How do I roll out my particular marketing programs based on, am I made to order? Am I grab and go? What's the demographics? What's the day part? So you got to think through how you're going to market this particular food service operation, and then getting into all of the promotions. Do you have your food service people promoting, get a cookie for 79 cents with every sandwich purchase? Do you have in-store signage? Do you have those beautiful displays that are out at the pump trying to entice people to come in? It's going to take a lot to get me in. I'm a pay at the pump type of guy. I park at the far outside lane and I don't want to have to go into the store. But if you were to offer something that was incredible inside, I'd probably fill up my car, pull over, and walk in the store. You have to entice someone like me to come in and have me go, wow, this is legitimately a great offering. And as long as I'm here, I'm going to take advantage of it. If you've ever been to Buc-ee's, I feel the same way about Buc-ee's, as I'm willing to go inside and buy one of those, sandwiches that they sell. And to me, that's just a great way to combine my trip. If I fill up my car with gas at Buc-ee's, I can go in and get one of those fabulous beef sandwiches. If you're interested, I actually have 2 helpful marketing books that are on Amazon. If you are going to launch a new store or a new food service operation, I have one called How to Stage a Killer Grand Opening. This is also good if you want to do a 2-year anniversary or 5-year anniversary. It's the same premise. It'll give you a bunch of ideas. And then local store marketing. I'm a huge believer in kind of controlling your 2 to 3 mile radius around your store. There's 22 ideas in this manual. These are low cost or no cost ideas. And it's as simple as, you know what, we're going to go visit every business and let them know we have a food service operation at our store now, because we want all that food that's going to be served at business meetings to come from our location. And you have to take it to the people. You can't just expect them to make the leap to say, wow, that convenience store could actually be an opportunity for us to get food there as opposed to getting it from Panera or Chipotle. From a summary standpoint, launching food service, to me, it's an exciting initiative. It's a smart decision because, other margins are getting compressed, and food service in particular, if you have a proprietary food service brand, you got a lot more leeway with what you can command from a margin standpoint. Now, if you manage it incorrectly, if your idea of food service, I'm going to have frozen burritos that you just nuke in the microwave, that's running it like a C-store. You're not going to get much traction there at all. So you think about if you don't have your procedures in place, you don't have your systems in place, you have to think, if I'm going to get into this game, I got to think like a quick service restaurant. What would they do to be able to execute this? And if you understand those complexities and you put together a great menu, a great brand, a great offering, you can enjoy huge benefits. And there are examples inside the convenience store industry where companies have developed food service and done it really well. And it is the reason why people walk into the store is because of that food service offering. So you want to be thinking about, how do I get my food service to the point where people come in and you're the benefactor of higher margin products going out the door. So once again, my name is John Matthews. I am the president and CEO at Gray Cat Enterprises. There's my email and my website and my mobile number. If you're interested, you can reach me multiple ways. So I'm going to turn it back over to Linda.
Thank you, John, for that wonderful presentation. And thank you for providing our Small Operator Academy members with such valuable advice on introducing a food service program and setting it up for long-term success. As you mentioned at the beginning of your presentation, food service is a big deal in the industry today, and it's certainly something that just keeps continuing to build momentum. So thank you for your time.
Well, thank you.
Looking for a single source to help you automate your independent retail operations? With over 40 years of experience and more than 35,000 licensed installations, Success Systems is the solution you need. Everything starts with the price book. If your business doesn't have a solid and accurate price book as its foundation, profitability is difficult and may even be impossible. Success Systems offers a range of back-office solutions built for single-store operators or multi-store enterprises. Accessible from virtually anywhere, these cloud-based solutions feature inventory control, product groups with the ability to place products in multiple groups, promotions, EDI invoices, and more. Choose the solution that's right for you today, with the confidence of knowing that it can grow as your business grows. Expand your back office with additional functionality like Success Systems' handheld inventory app, It Scans. Using your phone or tablet, It Scans can help you receive vendor merchandise, add new products, manage items at the shelf, perform store inventories, and change register prices instantly. You can't always be at your store, but you still need to be able to keep an eye on things. It's real-time as your window into what's happening at your store right now. Wouldn't you want to know that $50 in scratch tickets were just voided when it happens? Not when your lottery account runs negative? Receive instant notifications for events such as an open drawer, voids, and line item corrects. See up-to-the-moment sales data. Quickly and easily search your electronic journal to find a chargeback or old receipts, monitor fuel levels in real time without installing special equipment, and more. All for less than you can imagine. Do you know if you're getting all of the money you should from your tobacco loyalty programs? Smoke and Rebates data has been certified by Altria, RJR, and ITG. Unlike others, we show you the data so you know it's being submitted correctly. And when your rebate arrives, you know it's right. Smoke and Rebates also includes an approved integration with Altria's Price API for electronic updates of products, prices, buy-downs, and promotions. Smoke and Rebates is your resource to maximize Tier 1 multi-pack, Tier 2 loyalty, and Tier 3 P Plus rebates. Lottery is a popular category that brings customers into the store, but it can also be one of the most challenging, labor-intensive, and loss-prone departments for store managers and owners. The LotteryTrack POS-based system will help grow your bottom line by significantly cutting management time and reducing shrinkage, while simplifying receiving, activating, settling, and closing books. Get instant notification of missing tickets, voids, and payouts so you know before your account goes negative. Save reporting time with faster and more accurate electronic data transfer between LotteryTrack and your state lottery portal. Better understand your lottery business with audit trails of ticket sales, missing tickets, payouts, and most importantly profits. With LotteryTrack, you could be winning at lottery. Tired of spending hours manually entering paper invoices? Frustrated with the expense and inaccuracy of most OCR invoice conversion tools? There is an easier way. It Scans AI. With a growing list of over 600 participating suppliers, It Scans AI substantially cuts the cost of running a store and will dramatically improve profits. Take a photograph or scan any computer-generated paper invoice, and the Success Systems artificial intelligence system will accurately convert it into an EDI invoice in 30 seconds. You simply approve the results and send your new EDI invoice to the back office, where any cost changes are highlighted so you can adjust prices accordingly and protect your margins. It's that fast. It's that simple. It's the 21st century of invoice processing. Every business shares a common goal of profitability, but they each have their own unique needs and challenges. That's why Success Systems offers its customizable platform POS with 5 service levels, so you can start with a system that matches your needs and grows with you. The perfect solution for convenience, grocery, tobacco, liquor, and more. Platform POS fully integrates with back office, scan data reporting, loyalty programs, and offers an enhanced checkout experience for your customers. Platform POS is designed to be fully integrated with all of our store automation solutions. Plus, you get data backups, the ability to accept all payment types, and support for cash discounts. Whether you are opening your first store, your 20th, or looking to improve existing store operations, Success Systems offers the solutions you need to manage and grow your business. Call us at 800-653-3345, and we will be happy to tell you all the ways we can help you be a success.